So I guess we should start this off by. I mean, if you're a respectable rock and heavy metal fan, then we got to start it off with beer, right? I mean,
yeah.
And seeing how you guys have your own,
A little weed and whiskey, beer. Yeah.
This is
part of the Trinity.
This is the sign of making it when you have your own beer. All the other stuff.
Well, it's hard to get your own whiskey. Down. So, but yeah, I mean, making your beer is the new thing metal bands do.
Yeah.
So we decided to try to venture into this because we've, of course, wanted to do beers for a long time. We love beer. It is a favorite beverage of ours, amongst others.
Yeah.
And so basically, the idea was born a long time ago in Nights of Partying, where Mr. John Henry, our singer, Man About Town, had met a bunch of people who are associated with the brewery because they also, like him, go all around DC. You know, everybody is kind of a community of like this punk and hardcore thing that is happening, and like more of like the underground thing that's happening. It kind of coincides with the underground beer movement because people are going out and they kind of want specialty beer now because there's so many other things happening. So anyway, these communities overlap, and we were lucky enough that they did with the people that run this brewery called DC Brow, which we were talking about is a locally owned brewery in Washington, D.C. It's either DC's first or oldest brewery because the laws were very strict there for a while that they couldn't happen, but it changed relatively recently.
Really?
Yeah. So they also have a tasting room there that acts as a bar where they premiere all their beers and stuff like that. And so it sort of acts as a bar as well and a meeting place for people, like-minded people of the punk, hardcore, and heavy metal community.
It makes perfect sense. It's that way here in Ohio too. There's tons of microbrews out here too. The angle I liked with you guys and your beer is that it's not a heavy beer. It's a lager, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the big thing is to go big with the alcohol content. A lot of when I went to the beer distributing marketing meeting that I was forced to go to because of launching this beer, I learned a lot about like the process of how they kind of do all of those things and kind of getting swept into it. You sort of see everything from a different perspective. And as far as, I mean, partnering with them in a sense of like, we didn't want to make a beer that was like super heavy, you know, to make it simple. Like, I think the Iron Maiden one is really,
it is.
Heavy,
it's
right?
good.
It's pretty heavy alcoholic. Right?
Yeah. It's not one you're going to pound.
It's not like
all night.
We have a beer, I think it's called Dogfish Head. I don't know if it's available. Yeah. Okay, so, you know,
I've been there.
That
in Rockville?
Heavy, okay?
Yes.
Heavy. So we wanted the opposite because once we drink two of those, like, dudes start to not be able to play that well. So
yes.
Also, when you mix that with other extracurricular activities, things just get ugly fast.
The tempos get a little... They go out and strange.
I'm saying things get real ugly. So
everyone's staring into their cymbals and shit. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. So we wanted a light kind of, I mean, like a craft PBR also. Was
something you could drink all day.
Well, or just on stage being aerobic to heavy metal while mixing weed and whiskey with it and just kind of the vibe of a heavy metal concert. And the taste of it is great. I mean, Aaron, our bass player, loves Miller Lite, and he loved it too.
There's nothing wrong with that, dude.
See,
nothing at all.
As he
the high life.
That's what I've been doing like the last couple of years because we're getting a little bit older, and my hipster beer snob friends kind of shit on me because the last couple of years I've been doing Corona in cans, and it's that beer.
That's always great in a can.
It's beautiful in a can. That's how it always should be. It's crisp and
we love
good.
Corona too. So don't let anybody take your spirit, man.
Dude, I won't.
Because they're going to be the first one at I'll tell you, I bring Corona all the time to parties that have like highfalutin beer.
Yeah.
And the Corona gets drunk all the way.
That's right.
It's very drinkable.
Always does.
And in cans from now on.
I don't know about. I'm
going to disagree.
I'm going to drink it at any.
Well, see, here's the
medium
deal.
Available.
The dirty secret is we will just drink whatever beer that is kind of free in there, really.
Yeah, if it's free, of course, right? But if I got my pick.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, because then we have some Miller Lite, some Bud Light still sitting around, maybe, right? No?
I mean, we've been drinking
We've been drinking them. Basically, is the comment.
You're doing your
We
job.
Last
have
resort.
been, and we will drink them.
You're a rock band on tour, man. You got to drink all that beer.
I'm fucking with your levels, but we're screaming into the.
I'd rather have you be too loud than too quiet because we're learning.
That's usually our problem. Trust me. Once we start warming up here in a minute, it'll be too loud for anyone to want to hang out in here.
Have you guys sound checked yet?
Oh yeah, we're done with that. We're way
Okay.
past that.
Okay. I didn't know how
This
long
is
we
the
had.
chilling out phase.
Yeah.
It's quiet before the storm.
Yep. And then there's the quiet after the storm.
Yeah.
I just need a little bit of quiet time after a show. We're musicians, by the way, too. So we're DIY though. We just started our podcast because we've brushed up against the mainstream music media over the years, and man, damn it, I just don't like it. You know?
Well, I think that podcasts are a powerful new form of
They're blowing up.
communication, and I mean, I've been doing one in association with the album.
Oh no shit.
And yeah, you can. It's called Darkest Hour Radio. You can get it on iTunes.
We will do
And
that.
we did an interview I interviewed each one of the band members, kind of about the process and about things that circled the album, the crowdfunding thing, and we also played songs from the album and discussed some things about them and songs from the past, bands from the past. John and I did like a storytellers kind of episode. There's 7 or 8 out now, but I think it's cool. Like,
And it's
it's
fun.
not for everybody, but there's every once in a while, and pretty often, I'll go out into the audience after the show and talk to people, and people will come up and be like, "I love the podcast," and you're like, "Oh, people are listening. Crazy! I'm here," because you can hear those anywhere, and they're free.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so I think it's a great companion to the music that we're doing, and I also think this is a great way to do interviews that aren't, in print anymore because people aren't trading magazines.
Yeah, and it's more chill too. I mean, that's how we do our podcast. We just talk.
Yeah,
You know?
a lot of musicians are gonna shy from it though because they want to
do.
edit. They want to edit what they say, and also recording what you're saying. It's a lot different than me saying something, you printing it, and then me being able to deny
Right.
saying it that I'm saying.
Right.
They want to stay PC. I got to say, I love the fucking title of the new album and everything I've heard off of it. Godless Prophets and the Migrant Flora. What's that all about?
Well, okay, hold on. This is gonna take a second, but
All
let
right.
me just
Well,
sip
Take
this
your time.
You may get out the
So
jack.
unlike some of the previous albums lyrically that were written more first person, they're obviously very personal. Early on, it's clear there's like there's anti-religious elements, sort of misanthropic societal elements, and then John sort of found his groove as the main writer of all the lyrics and everything, and then it got really personal for him. And then we put out an album that was very political around the George Bush era. That was also a very political perspective the way it was written. I'm not saying that this album is a total political album or anything, but I am saying like occasionally as a songwriter you choose to use a device to be able to express something rather than expressing it in a direct form. And so this album uses a kind of like sci-fi kind of story that John's created to act as a veil of the message, but also as a vehicle of it in a way where you can't necessarily do if you're writing in the first person.
Right.
So,
Well, that kind of leaves it up to interpretation a little
well,
bit too,
and
right?
also like when you are writing about a character in a story or something that's not first person, then you are able to maybe express something that is how you feel that you can't do in the same way. Like, for example, I've been in a committed married relationship for over a decade with the same woman for a super long time. So for me to write love songs, it's really weighted because it, like, if it is a true love song about my life, then it's like about this certain one situation. And so I think here, this is kind of in a different way. It's political, but it's also personal. If you look, every song has a dual meaning. Every song works within the story that John's concocted, but also within a separate message in itself, and then also a message within the greater story. So Godless Prophets and the Migrant Flora, the title refers to the two main, I don't want to say warring factions, but two characters in the story, right? The Godless Prophets represent either, the band or humanity or where humanity's headed, or maybe in this way it's like technology, we're worshiping aliens who sort of either rediscover Earth or crash there, depending on your interpretation of the lyrics and the story. I don't want to try to paint too much of it, but then you also have the Migrant Flora, which is the sort of Earth nature kind of spiritual, almost global entity, right? And it's based off of this idea that the Migrant Flora is sort of this scientific concept that like plants might be the most dominant species of being on Earth. They've travel across continents even though they have no ability to do that by attaching to other things that do. They spread, they constantly grow no matter what. Unlike other beings that die and refertilize, like plants are made to do that. I mean, so basically this idea
too,
that you have a sort of a world in developing an actual consciousness to where it can then speak for itself. And now where does technology and where humanity is fit in with that? And also, if you turn around a mirror at what's happening today in the world, like when we were writing the album, it was the last election year of what's now the Trump term.
Right.
And we didn't have any idea that he was going to win.
Nobody
I don't
did.
think people really did inside of, the internet and where we were at. And so maybe not even in the general public, it wasn't thought that he was going to actually win. And so the way that it really spun out is actually dark and terrifying because it's so fucked up. It wasn't prophetic, but there's so many things as I even dig into it that I find like reflect what's happening now in so many fucked up ways. It's scary because in the beginning it felt like John's imagination pulling it together.
Yeah.
And now when it's like so easy for me to pull the fucking correlation between real life and what he wrote about, it's fucking brutal and it's timely and it's awesome. And I think that's part of why it connects. And it's not for the people that a lot of people nowadays, they want to see something on their phone or they want to get it. They want to understand it. Our philosophy on the last album was punch you right in the face. The album was called Darkest Hour. It was, marketed by Sumerian, who was very into streamlining it, making melodic, pushing it in that direction. And this time, you have to take a minute. If you give a shit, you have to dive in and try to figure out what John has to say and what the band has to say and what we're doing musically and how it makes sense. And it might not hit you the right way the first time because this is a high context album. There's a lot happening musically fast. There's a lot happening lyrically. Well, and it all pulls together.
That invites people to go back and listen again and again. I don't think you want somebody to get it the first listen because they might get bored quickly. So, I mean, it's good.
To be honest with you, as a songwriter, I do. I
Really?
want you to hear that shit the first time and be like, God damn it, that shit's bad. Hit that play again. Like, when I was a kid, there was this thing called MTV. It was like it was YouTube before you could pick anything.
Right.
And we used to watch Headbangers Ball, which is the only hour-and-a-half program that had music, and they only probably played music for 45 minutes. And I'll never forget, it was the first time they ever played, pretty sure it was the first time they'd ever played a Pantera music video on MTV. It was the premiere. And they played the first song off Vulgar Display of Power, Mouth for War.
Right.
And the video is kind of them in this weird square stage with people moshing and it's slow-mo animation, And the thing is, we were fucking floored. We couldn't believe what we had just seen.
For
and
sure.
There was no way to replay it. And I can't explain that to people anymore because that reality is dead. Like the reality that you saw that, it was fucking awesome.
You got to wait.
And you either have to wait or figure out how to get it again.
Yeah.
But unless you videotaped that shit with your VHS and you knew it was coming.
Right.
And then you had that golden tape.
Which we did.
Yeah, well, we didn't. Yeah, I should have videotaped every episode. Actually.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Years later, we had a guitar player who joined the band for a minute. His name was Mike Garrity. Since he was a Mike, all the Mikes in the band get a nickname that aren't me because I'm the original motherfucker.
You have two mics, right?
There's one Mike, me.
Oh, okay. I knew you were Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
But isn't
Mike.
Lone Star a Mike too?
Yes. No.
Okay.
Here's why. Let's be clear.
Okay.
He's never a Mike because I don't want anything he ever says to be attributed to anything I've ever said. And I guarantee he definitely doesn't always want everything I say to be spoken as word for him. So therefore, we need to be two separate people.
You've done a good job. separating yourselves.
I don't think so. Half the time I go places, people are like, "Yo, Lone Star, your solo's awesome." I'm like, "Dude, sure. I'm glad that you love the band. My name's Mike, but I know Mike Lone Star." Like,
do both of you guys do leads?
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved that way, but really, I was originally just the guitar player, and then we started getting second guitar players who really were just dudes that played everything that I wanted them to because I had just so much ego about it. It was like brutal letting someone in our band. You know? And then after a while, after he wrote, his name was Fred Ziomic. He was a part of the voice of Mark of the Judas, our first full length.
Okay.
And after I realized that the reason that the Mark of the Judas is good, right, is because instead of being like fucking crazy, even though I am a crazy person, instead of being really a crazy person, we actually the process let Fred write a little bit, and it also let Ryan, the drummer at the time, express what he was doing, and also John grew into his voice a little bit at that time, and so everybody together working on it made that album better. So then we went to So Sedated and tried to push it a little harder, but then Fred left the band and we got Chris Norris, but in between that period we got Mike Garrity, and he, who I was talking about, Good Times Garrity, used to work at MTV, and he made me a playout of all the Headbangers Balls on videotape before he left, and it's pretty awesome. I got him. We sometimes pop them in, but the VHS doesn't really work that well anymore. We didn't see that far into the future, you know.
Do kids even know what VHS is? It's these there's these little tapes that we used to watch movies.
It's
and
like
shit
an
on.
8-track for videotape.
Right.
Nobody even knows what that is. Trust me.
Well, giant cassettes. You know, cassettes are coming back in.
Yeah.
From
Are you guys
what I hear.
doing
I know
that?
we did. We did
You
a
guys putting it
cassette
on
demo
cassette?
for the Indiegogo crowdfund thing we did, and the cassette demo was limited to it was like 50, but everyone's a different color that you get.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously they were just for the people that got the package, and it was so funny because I made it and I mastered it for the cassette, and I sent it to the pressing plant, and I thought, hey, nobody's gonna listen to this. And then I got the tapes back, and I was like, oh, I should play it in a tape player. I had to go find my friend's tape player and put it on. And I was like, oh, it sounds fine. It's like really hissy on the high end and quiet, the way tapes are. But then Greg, the owner of Southern Lord Records, I gave him one along with all the other stuff, just because he's a collector of things. And of course, he listened to this thing and he hit me on text and he was like, I love this cassette. It sounds so raw and awesome. We need to do a cassette of the new album, man. I need that cassette hiss. And I'm just like, see, people just like vinyl crackles, people like cassette hiss.
I'm a vinyl guy, but I haven't gotten the cassette resurgence. I'm just like,
I grew up with cassettes, and they're fucking pain in the ass. Vinyl isn't as much of a pain in the ass to me because I know that it's not portable.
Right.
But a cassette I
Stays at
expect
home.
to play everywhere, like in my fucking car, in my Walkman. So you put cassettes through too much, man.
Well, cars don't even have CD players in them anymore, man.
Just aux cables, dude.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
now iPhones don't even have ways to play aux cables. So
Well, you can get an adapter.
yeah, well then you can lose
Another
your adapter the next
$5,000.
day.
Makes your phone bigger and more awkward. Well, I'm a new fan. I've known about you guys for a long time.
But you just hated those other albums.
Well, it was just that there's so many great bands out there now that you have access to, and that's kind of where I've been personally, like the last few years.
It's a real honest, nice answer.
It is. It's as honest as
you know what I mean?
Real
like,
deal.
I just haven't had time to find every band.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you found Clutch because they're from Maryland. I'm a Maryland motherfucker.
Yeah.
I moved there from D.C. because I had a kid and had to move out of the city for better schools.
Yeah,
but
right.
I don't claim Maryland as my, I don't feel a Marylander, but Clutch is like probably the biggest Maryland claimed band, I would think.
I would say too. They're
yeah,
humongous.
so and they're awesome. So I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, you've had time to find the greats, and now once you see us live, we play these new jams, and you check out the album. Maybe this will be the one that see. That's the best thing because the problem is it's really hard to hit these people who love Undoing Ruin and Sadist Nation because once you hit someone and they love something, like you love your band, like they love Master of Puppets. They, Override the Lightning and Justice. It's hard. They're never gonna not love that less than any other album.
Right.
So if you can make people feel that way about your newest album, like 21 years after you started a band, on your 9th full length, then
You're doing
that's
your
pretty
job.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, working in the right direction.
Yeah, well, you're at least creating art that's continuing to have impact, and that's success depending on how you define success. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean everybody's got to make a buck, but watching your guys' webisode on the new album, the 6-part series, you can tell that you guys are fully, you're keeping your integrity of the vision of the music intact, and that's what's most important from the creative standpoint.
I think that was
And it shows.
Yeah, well, I think that was one of the driving factors to having Kurt Ballou work with us on the album.
Yeah.
As a producer, because Kurt does not give a fuck. Like, he is a man who has made his entire career as a musician based on the integrity of being a person that only does really what they want to. And
Right.
I'm not saying that I haven't felt like I feel like I've done whatever I've wanted to, but I also taken maybe possibly more of like a Van Halen approach to I think Kurt's been a lot more cult about it, like go straight down and be in control of what he wants to do 100% of the time.
Right.
Also, he was not on a contract with the record label as insane as Victory Records for a decade, which probably helped him out. But
Right.
his voice in allowing, as the ultimate gatekeeper and allowing the band to just be ourselves was, I think, one of the key factors to why those webisodes feel that way and why the album sounds that way.
Yeah, it shows. It shows that you guys have poured everything you can into it. And I mean, and the songs are good. And another striking thing when I heard the first 3 songs was the length of them. Because a lot of heavy metal bands these days, we'll just call you heavy metal. I don't know what to call it.
I think that's good. That's what we've been striving for. I mean, metalcore,
I'd call you rock.
Honestly, I don't mind when people call us metalcore, although I hate metalcore. I'm getting a phone call in the middle of the podcast.
No worries. That happens all the time.
I don't hate metalcore, but it has a bad rap. But it also there's probably bad bands in that genre, But regardless, I also like thrash metal. I like death metal, like melodic death metal, like speed metal. I mean, and so to me, Darkest Hour has elements of everything, and it is metal from the future in that way.
Yeah.
So I think heavy metal is the only appropriate moniker because that is the most universal. Although back when shit was in the record stores, we fought to be listed as a rock band because when you were a metal band, when you were some kind of black metal, speed metal, thrash metal, you would get put in the off section, and we wanted to be in the main area because we wanted to be taken as seriously as fucking the Doobie Brothers, you know what I mean? And so genre-wise, I think it's funny. Everybody says, I don't believe in genres. I don't give a fuck about them. But people need them. They use them regardless of it. So as a genre, that's where I would put us,
It gets confusing. Like being artists ourselves, I mean, when people ask, what do you guys sound like? It's like, I don't fucking know, man. I don't know. It's rock. I just throw it down. I was like, it's rock.
In the amount of time you've said that, you could type the band's name into your supercomputer phone and just push it in their face.
Yeah, just play the shit.
And happily present them an artist's deepest creation via the speakers over your iPhone. But
right.
That is reality.
Just go take a little effort and make a little effort and listen to the shit, please. But as I was saying, what was striking about the songs is that they're relatively short, and that's kind of what I've been wanting out of my metal lately. Because it seems like a lot of bands are going, I wouldn't say proggy, but just longer songs, 10, 12 minutes, and so many bands are doing that. It can kind of lose the meaning. It loses punchiness, like kind of
there's
punch
no
in the face.
12-minute. I mean, there's there's a 5-minute. There might even be a 5.5-minute one on there.
Most of them are 4 or 3 that I've seen, that I've heard.
Here's the thing. We stopped a long time ago having to have a certain amount of length. I think the Sadist Nation album is a perfect album as an example where the songs are long, and so live we have actually cut verses out occasionally and stuff like that to make them just have more impact.
Yeah.
Or
you're going to play 3 songs in your set and be done.
So I think this is just where we're at. But on this album, the songs were written so that they worked, and there wasn't a bracket that they had to fit in. I think maybe the ones that rose to the top fit good because they are in that category, but there's a lot of other songs on the album to peel back that aren't the 3 that we released on the internet.
Right.
And I think those wouldn't have been the long ones no matter what we did,
Right. Yeah, the 3 I for some reason I think I confused the beer release with the album release. I thought it was out because I bought the 3 songs today on iTunes. I was like, shit, the whole thing isn't out. But
Dude, well, thank you first for buying it on iTunes, okay? Because I know people are stoked to pre-order it from the Indiegogo, which they did, and then they're pissed that they missed it, and then they're like, "Oh, order it from Southern Lord," who isn't just any record label. They're been very helpful. So, like, if you buy the album through Southern Lord, that money comes right to us, and it's sick, and it's a great deal for the band. But if you buy it on iTunes, it's also really good for us because it counts. It is a sale.
Right.
That does matter. Does matter, especially when you have a record deal that works for the band.
Right.
So that digital sale is a lot of profit for this band. It also has a lot of weight with iTunes. They'll throw more Darkest Hour albums up if they think there's traffic.
Yeah,
Spotify will spin it more. The whole world will just get more Darkest Hours. So, like, if you do care about the band, buying it via those avenues really matters more now than ever. Like, I used to actually have the opposite mantra. I used to come on interviews and say, fuck Metallica, fuck Napster, the internet's the new radio, everybody's just fucking crazy, everybody did tape trading. But now my attitude is not that. It's just, if you do care, then voting with your dollar does matter. I'm not telling you to do it to my personal little artist endeavor, but I am saying to do it with some sort of conscience, because having had complete access to the backstage of a lot of bands and meeting people,
right?
It's just crazy because you see how much it impacts a band to actually purchase the album digitally, because that digital purchase does help a band. It doesn't have a lot of expense to deliver it to you,
right?
And it offsets a lot of things that do have a lot of inner expenses, you know?
Yeah, and another important thing to do for those listening is to rate and review the bands on iTunes as well. That also pushes them further into
and
the chart.
Podcast.
And podcast too. Yeah,
subscribe, baby.
Yeah, we're all over that all the time.
Got to pimp the product.
Yeah, man. I mean, why not? Well, I mean, we've talked about, when you mentioned politics, one of the things that came up recently was the National Endowment for the Arts, and like me and him talked about this on a previous podcast. It's like, well, even if that were to go away, which I don't think it is, but even if it did, the people that care about whatever artists that they're into, then it's up to you. It's up to you to get out and support them. I mean, you can't subsidize that. I mean, I think especially heavy metal and rock artists need the people's support more than ever. And buying a $1.29 song is going to put us further down the road. Or buying a shirt at a show. You know, get out there and do it. You know, support art.
On the day of the inauguration, around DC. There's a lot of different bands and artists and stuff, and I'm always playing with other people.
Yeah,
I was lucky enough to be a part of a band that played, another band, not Darkest Hour, but a band that played as part of a bigger show with Ted Leo and a bunch of other acts, which was basically all the money was dedicated to DIY music spaces in Washington, D.C. who have become under the attack of like the alt-right on the internet.
Right.
This place, Comet Ping Pong. It was one of them specifically. It was part of the Pizzagate thing.
That's in D.C.?
Yeah, it's in Washington, D.C. And so these are places that have like DIY shows where bands that are not that big can play and draw 50 people.
Right.
And they are perfect artist spots in the city. And the city is a really expensive city to live in D.C.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so having these places is important. They've come under attack and then also are afraid of getting funding cuts. So in one show, they were able to dedicate like $6,000 or $7,000 to each of those places. And I was like blown away that they could raise that much. And I think it just sort of shows that I think what you're seeing is once the cage is rattled, like people will come out and support proudly.
Right.
And I think that's happening now in a subconscious sense. People don't even know it with the Darkest Hour album, because we're a band. We're going out there. We're going to red states. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We go to everywhere. And we provide a safe space for people who think anything to show up. Like, the band is not a hive mind. The audience, we do not want to be a hive mind. We want to have a
open dialogue,
place of individual thinking.
Yeah, conversation. You know.
Well, just mainly we I guess we're individualists, but we also are optimists who like to party, because we just want people to be able to be themselves. And I think that there is a limit to when being yourself starts to get into, I guess, in direct contrast to what's good for everybody.
Right.
And then
Well, don't be a dick,
The
you know?
group has to make a decision around that. And
Sure.
hopefully together we can all as a culture provide a way to people understand what that is, but that's become increasingly harder. So I think that in general, that's what we try to do with the heavy metal show. And just recently we went to Indonesia and played for women that were in full hijab, like covered completely. And I hadn't really experienced that much in my life.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
growing up in a high school that had a lot of people, there were practicing Muslims there, so
Right.
I had been exposed to it. But playing a heavy metal concert and seeing people actually in the audience dressed that way is just mind blowing, you know. And so
That's
we enjoy that, and in America there needs to be a lot more of that, kind of a lot more of sort of the mixing of all this kind of dialogue. And also riffs can be pretty uniting, like nationalism, politics, religion. Those three things can be the most divisive things, you know, the most divisive and powerful forces of currently. And so the nice thing about art and the funny thing about this melodic death metal band is we're sort of like, in my opinion, this has a better chance of being a more unifying factor than those things. And I think we try to prove that by just getting out there and playing. And we don't have the same funding and we don't have the same media machine that those other entities have, but we're going to fight the good fight regardless, and that's why I'm on your podcast.
Well, what do they say? That music is the universal language. I mean,
everybody's invited. Just don't be a dick. Come on in.
You never know. Like, it's funny. You never know how a badass guitar riff is a badass. Like, guitar through an amp is universal. I have neighbors who don't have any idea about heavy metal, and their kids see me playing guitar all the time, and they just think it's magical because it sounds that way. And I think that's can be used for great good and great evil, depending on how you wield it.
Guitar riffs? Well, Slayer's pretty evil, and they're fucking rad at the same time. So
well, and they're currently using their evil for not that evil. So
yeah, they're bringing everybody together, all the evil people. Wait, well, I don't know.
That was Slayer's whole point. Is like they're for like misfits and crazy ass people, and they give people hope that other people think fucked up thoughts like them.
And before that, Motorhead, you know.
Yeah, and I remember watching the Slayer DVD. It was a documentary of Slayer fans, and I remember after watching it thinking like, I am not a Slayer fan. Like, these people are fucked up. But I think the overall idea of the DVD was just to paint the idea that that's Slayer. Like, Slayer is sort of the outcast, hated, sort of really angry, always pissed, equal opportunity hater of everything.
Yeah.
So,
that was
and
their
I
brand.
think Slayer is a good example, as well as Leonard Skinner, of two bands that I personally disagree with on a political front, but also love musically. So I encourage anybody who is, in my opinion, you know, a crazy person because they don't agree with me, to just check the band out and think maybe I'm just a crazy asshole who plays guitar, but the band's cool. Because I think it is important to like music, not necessarily if it's really awful, but music that's outside your comfort zone, because you can learn a lot from it. You know, if you hate hip hop, if you're like a person that just hates all rap, all hip hop, you need to listen to more of it. You know, if you hate all jazz, you need to check out more of it. There's things that are universal in those forms of music, and the more
At least
you
try.
give it, well, trying will lead you down a road of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tried to listen to. I've never been a Bruce Springsteen fan, and so I try. Everybody tells me when you get older, man, you'll come around.
So what albums did you listen to?
Fuck, it wasn't an album. It was a couple songs, and it was on Sirius. It was on his radio station.
Yeah, that's
Sirius.
like, of course. So why would you haven't even experienced Bruce Springsteen yet? You need to go get like.
I don't like it, dude. I'm just
because
not.
You haven't heard the right Bruce Springsteen. That's my opinion. But I don't love the Beatles. I like the Rolling Stones.
Me
so
too. I'm a
everybody
Stones
has
guy.
An opinion.
Yeah.
You know. But if you like the Stones, you're even closer to liking the Boss, man.
Where do you think so, man?
Dude, there's some badass songs, man.
It's
Darlington County is a badass Bruce Springsteen song.
It's them and the Dead. Or Springsteen and the Dead. I just can't get into.
Know, the Dead. You know what? The Dead's interesting though, because they are actually a band that had this sort of like this migrant fan base, you know, and really not a lot of people have been able to replicate that. And I think there is something to the fact that their music. Oh yeah, Clutch is close.
Clutch is they're taking that tradition. I mean, because they got big, and I think Neil Fallon has said this. He's like, they didn't start getting big until until the internet exploded, till after the downloading thing started. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much the same concept as the cult following of the Dead in the 70s and 80s and 90s.
I mean, you could say that, but I think it's more simple. I think they got big when they got in control. Like they did that
That's true too, yeah.
Atlantic Motor Speedways album that was on a major or something.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it sort of shifted to the band being more in control creatively and more businessly. And I think
Yeah.
you can see an arc with that. And we've definitely used bands like them as, I guess, gut checkpoints to be like, well, this is what bands are doing. Can
Yeah.
you do that? And
Yep. That's a template. It's like, well, they're doing it, so follow what they're doing.
well, maybe not, or just what is working there and what can
Right.
we integrate? Because
Yeah, right,
as
right,
a
exactly.
musician, you don't always just copy what you see. You sort of observe and you ingest.
Absolutely,
and you
yeah.
try to become like your best combination of those things.
Yeah, take the pieces and parts that work for your organization and make it happen. Well, you want to keep going? We can keep going, or
I don't know, man. You're in charge of the interview.
there's no rules. We can just bullshit the entire time.
There's no rules except for I have to play a concert
Yeah.
at some point. So you do have to end the interview at some point.
I guess we can wrap it up, man. We don't want to keep you
Well,
all night.
I mean, did you have any other questions? Let's see. We talked about the beer.
Beer,
And did we talk about the tour?
new
Tours-
album. Let's talk about the
All
tour
right,
real quick.
I'm gonna give you all the bullet points now of all shit you need to know.
We talked to
Ready?
Aaron a little bit before this,
That's
but
fine. Aaron doesn't know shit.
because
He's
you're
the bass
Mike.
player. Yeah, exactly.
You're the Mike.
The mic.
No, Aaron doesn't know a lot. Aaron actually probably knows everything. Actually,
No, he
that,
had a pretty
you
down.
know, he did. Okay, I'm proud of him. Maybe he's listening when I talk. I just didn't really think he was
He's like,
listening.
he's
I
writing
think he
shit
was just
down.
reading off of his stage pass.
I don't know. Sometimes it's just not sure if it gets through the beard.
is a
Zach
pretty-
say all this shit because he's not here.
It's pretty rad.
But anyway,
beard.
all right, here's the bullet points. We got the Savor the Swill beer. You missed out. You didn't get it. And it's
Never
sold
again.
out. And, I mean, maybe we'll make another beer, but sorry. That's it.
We'll come out to
Sorry.
Maryland and drink that.
We have
shit.
the new album. We've already released it to our pre-order people. If you pre-ordered it via Indiegogo. If you didn't, like yourself, and you got it from iTunes, you're going to get it on March 10th. But don't worry, it's still awesome. You'll be stoked. We have the 7-part webisode that is out on YouTube. You can check it out. It gives you a little bit idea what's happening. We have the physical versions of the album, which we did really the reason we partnered with Southern Lord Records, which is another thing we didn't touch on but could talk about, who put out the original version of Mark of the Judas, our first full length on vinyl. They are actually releasing the physical version of everything to a wider world audience.
Okay,
and
cool.
so they've helped us make the CD, the 12-inch, the picture disc, the colored 12-inch, basically
Nice.
some badass stuff. So if you want that, you got to get it from them, and they're easy to find on the old Google. Right?
Okay.
Then we have a few other things that are for sale as conjunction with the album that a lot of people don't have. We have like a complete digital transcription of it. If you're a guitar shredder and you like Guitar Pro like me and Mike, or if you have no idea what I just said and you're a guitar player, you need to Google Guitar Pro, and we have a PDF version of it for you, all old school if you need to learn it that way. But
Damn,
you need to
cool.
get down with these apps. And then we also have some beer glasses, some commemorative beer glasses, some limited patches we made off the first Darkest Hour screen. Got a whole bunch of posters. I mean, the only way to get a lot of this merch is to come see us at the shows, which are in America from now until March 22nd. And then in Europe from April 16th to sometime in the middle of May. And then the album was coming out in Australia and Asia and Japan. We're going to have to hit over there. We got some good rumblings of some good ideas for Europe again at the end of the year. So
Nice.
I think
Busy
this
year.
will be an active touring cycle where you can check out Darkest Hour, but you got to get that album so you know the songs live. So
Yeah.
that's the first component. And then lastly, see, we covered the beer.
Are you doing the whole album live?
No, well, not now. We're going to
Once
try
it's out.
I don't know. I mean, it really depends on where the imagination takes us. I mean, I've even had the idea like, okay, let's go play the album, record it a bunch of times in different scenarios. We could put out a live version of all the different songs, we could do a DVD. This album came with a DVD that if you pre-ordered it via Indiegogo, you got a DVD of the show of the Undoing Ruins set at the Black Hat in DC at the last show of the tour. Something like that would be cool too. So I think we just have a good situation right now, and we're sort of able to pump out things in higher quality in a way that we've never been able to before. So that's why it kind of feels like we got a second wind. And that's why we encourage everybody to check out all those special little things we did that I just mentioned, because it's been a lot of hard work, you know.
Fuck yeah.
Putting it together. But
I'll reiterate
you know,
that in the intros and outros of this. But thanks for doing
give
this
me
with
a
us.
good intro song.
What do you guys? Well, we'll go over that later.
Yeah.
But we'll figure all that out in a minute. But all right, man. Well, thanks for doing this.
Word.
Congratulations on the new record. The 3 songs fucking smoke, and I'm a fan now. I'll be buying it, the whole thing, when it comes out on March 10th, right?
Yep.
All right, cool.
All right. So
Thanks, Mike.
See you all in the pit.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.